What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about a book that I recently got and read, Starfire, Welcome Home. This is the first volume of the 2015 Starfire series, written by Amanda Connor, with art by Jimmy Palmiotti, Emanuela Lupacchino, and Ray McCarthy. And this also collects the first 6 issues of that Starfire series, as well as DC Sneak Peek Starfire issue 1. And I got this book as well as this book around the same time. I got them in the same order. I haven't read Cyborg yet, but I'm very interested in kind of comparing and contrasting these, so whenever I get around to doing a review of the Cyborg book, I'll probably be doing a lot of that, comparing it to the Starfire book, because both of these characters created at the same time in the New Teen Titans in the early 1980s, and both of them were designed to be team characters. This isn't like Dr. Fate, which I recently read and reviewed, where he was created to be a solo character and then was incorporated into a team, and for many years was a team character exclusively, but he also had long runs as a solo character. Both of these characters haven't really had long runs as solo characters. They've both had brief little spurts as solo characters, but not long ongoing runs. And I was thinking, if you had told me before I read the Starfire book that they were both going to get a solo series, I would have thought, okay, Starfire will probably work a little better as a solo character than Cyborg would. And bear in mind, when you create characters who are meant to be part of a team from their inception, it's a lot harder to then spring them off and give them their own solo series, because you have to create supporting characters. You have to add new villains that are exclusive to these heroes, that are not just team villains that they fight with the rest of their teammates. You have to create a setting for your series. You have to create all these elements that contribute to a status quo. And I was thinking with Starfire, back when I first heard that she was going to be getting her own solo series, I was thinking, okay, they're probably going to put her in outer space. She's either going to be the bodyguard to some alien prince or princess on some foreign world, or she's going to be the ambassador between Tamaran and Earth, or she's going to be part of the Omega Men, and she's going to be kind of doing a Guardians of the Galaxy thing, going out and killing Gordanians. I thought there was just about an endless opportunities for you to do with Starfire if you put her in outer space. Well, that's not what this book did. This book, if anything, it kind of reminds me of the Aquaman storyline, The Water Bearer, where he is kicked out of his kingdom and he has to build a new life for himself on the surface world, and he befriends a police officer and a few other people, and he's slowly just building a new life for himself. And that's what we've got going on here. Starfire, in this New 52 reboot, she was part of Red Hood and the Outlaws. I haven't read that series, but I heard nothing but bad things about it. And one of the reasons that I bought this book, besides being a Teen Titans fan and interested in seeing what they were going to do with this character, was that I heard a lot of people say that this book is very fantastic. And I think they were saying that comparing it to Scott Lobdell's Red Hood and the Outlaws series, because, again, haven't read that, but many people really hated that, and I think when people were reading the first few issues of this, they were saying, wow, this is really good, but I think there was an implied compared to that other series that she was part of. And I am okay with this book. I would say that it's a very well-written, well-drawn series. The characters are all kind of lovable and cutesy, and it's just not for me. It's a very well-crafted book all around, and I'm not the target audience. I would say the target audience for this book is a preteen, tween girl who's just getting interested in boys, and maybe they want to read comic books, but they're not really interested in the hard action superhero genre. And I will say that this book is not a superhero book. At the very beginning of the book, Starfire tells Superman that she's not in any way interested in being a superhero. This book is more like if Nancy Drew had superpowers, and she, not even that, because Nancy Drew is a proactive character who goes out and solves mysteries. Starfire, all she's interested in doing is building a new life for herself, separate from all the superhero community. She just wants to blend in with human society. And she just happens to have superpowers and occasionally uses them to help her friend who's the sheriff of this town. And she has moved to Key West, I think is what it is. And I have to say that I think I just came at this from an angle that was not the same angle that these creators were taking this character. I came at this because I'm a big Teen Titans fan, and I was wanting to see a Teen Titans spinoff, and this is not acting as a Teen Titans spinoff, largely because I think in the New 52, Starfire was never considered a Teen Titan. I don't think that her history with the Titans has remained intact in the New 52. But this book is, like I said, it's more for young girls who like the romance angle to be really emphasized, and they like girls talking to girls about, hey, let's go have a swimming party, and let's talk about our lives and stuff like that. And that's largely what's going on here. Now, it's not completely devoid of adventure elements, and I will specify this is an adventure book, it's not an action book. The adventure here is that there's a monster that comes and is trying to kill somebody in this town who maybe is a character who appeared before this book. I'm not really sure. They play her up like she has a backstory with Power Girl, but I've never heard of this character, so I don't know if she was created for this book and then they retconned her as being part of Power Girl's friend circle, or if she was one of Power Girl's supporting characters and then they grafted her onto this book. But they fight a monster, and then there's an alien who is hired to find and kill Starfire, and then that's about all that happens as far as like plot stuff. There is this guy who he can remove cancer from other human beings, but it is making him violently ill, and he's going around killing people, and he more or less he can't help it, or at least he claims he can't help it. And that's about all that happens here. Other than that, the rest of the book is Starfire trying to get acclimated to human society, and hilarity ensues, if you think that sort of thing is funny. And it's a little weird because I get the impression that Starfire has been on the planet for a little while, because this is acknowledging that she was part of Red Hood and the Outlaws, so she's been on the planet for a little while, but then she's going around and doesn't understand any human lingo at all. So when someone says something like, my brother has a head full of cement, or something like that, then you see a little thought bubble, and Starfire is imagining that guy, but his head is made out of concrete. And like people will say these catchphrases and stuff, and she doesn't understand them. And Starfire is very ill-equipped to go out into the world and live on her own. She has all these friends who are giving her advice about where she should move, and these are the worst human beings in the world because none of them are offering to help her. And she even tells Superman at one point that she has to do this on her own. That would be about like an 8-year-old girl telling her parents that it's time for her to move out and she's got to go find her own way in the world. Starfire is extremely naive about the ways of Earth, and there are multiple instances where she is very nearly taken advantage of by other people because she doesn't understand things. Like, she doesn't understand the monetary system of Earth. She doesn't understand that, okay, if she's going to buy some clothes, she doesn't need to just give, $1,000 that are all bundled up that she just got from the pawn shop guy. She doesn't need to give all of that. She doesn't understand anything about planet Earth. And if you've seen the movie Enchanted with Amy Adams, where she is basically a Disney princess who comes to Earth and she realizes that reality is very different from what she's used to, it's a lot like that, but with an alien princess instead of a fairy tale princess. And the characterization of Starfire here is very weird because they're writing her a lot like she was portrayed in the cartoon series from, I want to say 2003 is when that series started. And that series, the cartoon series, ended about 10 years before this comic book started. So it's very weird that they're trying to capture that characterization of Starfire when that cartoon series ended about a decade before this comic even began. People who are going to be reading this book, I have a feeling they're not huge fans of that cartoon series, or if they were, they haven't watched it in a really long time. And then on the same token, you have the Young Justice series, which had just ended about a year or so before this series began, and then DC refuses to do trade paperback collections of the Young Justice comic book series. So when they're trying to do cross-promotion, it doesn't really make any sense at all, and then when it would make a lot of sense for them to try and do cross-promotion, they don't even make any attempt at all. But the characterization of Starfire here, the best way to describe her is that she is a cross between her cartoon version and the Marv Wolfman George Perez version. The George Perez Marv Wolfman version was very, somewhat of a pun intended here, very fiery, very emotional, very warlike, in your face about everything, and a little bit naive about the customs of Earth. Like, when she first came to Earth, there were things that she didn't entirely understand, but very quickly she got past all of that and she became accustomed to the way things are done. And in the Titans comics from the early 80s, you'll hear characters talk about how that one time Starfire said, okay, it's time to go swimming, and then she took off all of of her clothes and went swimming. Like, they'll mention that, but you got the character, she got past that very quickly. This entire book is all about Starfire doing stuff like that, and I guess it's played kind of cutesy-like, and maybe if I was a 12-year-old girl, it would be more enjoyable to me, but I just kind of got annoyed with it. Like, it wasn't cutesy, I didn't think. I just kind of got frustrated, and I was wanting to see this character grow up a little bit and become a little bit more aware of the customs of Earth. But that whole backstory of her being traded into slavery, all that stuff from the comics, that's still here, but she's acting very naive and innocent like she did in the cartoon series. And I was never really upset that Starfire was portrayed very differently in the cartoon than she was in the comics, because if you've got a cartoon series aimed at children, you're probably not going to want to put a very sexualized, in-your-face sex queen, for lack of a better term, in your cartoon aimed at children. So I understand the cartoon wanting to portray her in a different way. I do not understand this book wanting to portray her very much like the cartoon did. But it's kind of a mix between the 80s Starfire and the cartoon Starfire. It's like 70% cartoon Starfire and then like 30% Starfire from the 1980s. Like, there's times where she says, okay, I'm going to go swimming and I'm going to take off all my clothes. And like, multiple people tell her, you can't do that. You have to wear clothes around here. She says, oh, it's okay. I don't have to. And it's like, no, you don't understand. That's not the way we do things. And she keeps talking about how she wants to blend into Earth society, but then she adamantly refuses to do things that are very customary on Earth society. And again, it's played like it's supposed to be funny, but I wasn't laughing. It wasn't hitting my funny buttons. So, like I said, I don't really have a whole lot more to talk about here. This book, very well written, very well drawn. I love the artwork a lot more than I like the story that's going on here. But I feel like this book is just not aimed towards me. So it's very hard for me to recommend this book unless you are a 12-year-old to maybe 15-year-old girl who wants to get into superheroes, but you're not interested in Batman or Superman or the X-Men or anything like that. This book would be perfect for people who are like that, or maybe if you really like Starfire from the Teen Titans cartoon and you still like that cartoon today, maybe you would really like this book. But overall, this book was not for me. I will not be buying Volume 2 just because this book didn't really do anything for me, but that is not to say that it's a bad book. So I will let you guys decide if you should or should not buy this book, depending on if any of those categories really apply to you. So those are my thoughts on Starfire. Welcome Home, Volume 1 of the New 52 series. And I will be doing some other videos later this week, so I will see you guys then. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.